glad that you're here. You know, here's the thing. There were a lot of churches in the area that canceled services today, but I can't do that. And let me tell you why. The second a Southern pastor who lives in New York cancels, they are forever known as that guy who can't handle the weather up here. And the jokes roll in, and they are relentless, so just can't be that guy. But that's okay. I'm glad that you guys are here. Hopefully we'll have a few more at 10:30 once they've had a chance to clear out. But you guys are you're the elite. You're the warriors. Got up early and got this thing done. So we are in a series called Stop Going to Church. And I think too many people took that seriously today. But the whole idea behind this series is that church was never supposed to be a place that we just go to. That happened much later. Church was always meant to be a group, a gathering, a people who gathered together around a simple message, around a simple mission. The message was Jesus crucified and risen from the dead, and the mission was that we've got to go and make disciples. We've got to go and tell everybody in the world about this. That was what it was always supposed to be. And somewhere along the way, it became about a place that you go. And I understand why we ask the question, do you go to church, or where do you go to church? But I think there's a real danger. If we're not careful, what we end up doing is just going to church, and we miss out on the best part, the absolute best thing about what it means to follow Jesus. And I don't want that to be you. I want us to really understand what it means to be rooted in church so that we can learn to be the church. And so that's what we're going to spend our next few weeks looking at. And I encourage you to be here for every single Sunday of that series. So if you're watching online, we're glad that you're watching online because a lot of you didn't make it out here this morning. But I want to encourage you, if you do miss a single Sunday, make sure you go and you check it out. Now, last week, what we determined is that we're going to look at some of the characteristics, some of the things that were true of the early church, the church right after Jesus left. And we want to make sure that we don't exactly do what they do, but that some of the things that were true of them are also true of us. We want to take on some of their characteristics. And so, last week we said that they showed, help me out with this. I'm glad you all paid attention. Does anybody remember? Unconditional love. Unconditional love. Can we go ahead and mute the PC? Anyway, they showed unconditional love to the people around them. And so today we're going to take it a step further, and we're going to show you something else that they did. But before I tell you what it is, let's read a little bit together from Acts chapter 2 and show you just a little bit about some of the things that they were doing right after Jesus left town. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, and to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts, and they broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. And then it says this, I love this, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. So they did all these things. They were all of these things, and then God added to their number daily those who were being saved. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the things that they were being, some of the characteristics that were true of this church. Last week we said that they had unconditional love for each other and for the people all around them. Today, we're going to take it a step further. Are you guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. They practiced this, obedient risk. Everybody say obedient risk. Obedient risk. What does that mean? What does that even look like? We're going to kind of have this working definition for the rest of the day. This is what obedient risk means. Stepping out of our comfort zone into the unknown for the purpose of making disciples. That's what obedient risk is. Stepping out of our comfort zone into the unknown for the purpose of making disciples. We already have the mission. We don't have to wait on that call. We know that we are supposed to make disciples. And so, what they showed over and over again was this propensity to go and risk everything, even their own lives, in order to make that happen. Like for example, they were so good at this. How many of you have a fear of public speaking? Anybody in the room? A few of you. They say that is the number one fear in America, more so than even dying. Speaking in front of people. I have it too, I don't know. But the thing is, Peter, who was kind of the most courageous, yet probably the most failing disciple of all, on the very first day of this church thing, you know what he did? He stood up among the 12 and he started preaching. He gave this speech in front of thousands of people. He stood up and gave this speech. Now, do you think that this was a risky moment for Peter? Yes, it was, because, listen, he's in the same area that Jesus, just a little bit before this, was crucified by the very people that Peter targeted in his message. He looked straight into their eyes. Well, I wasn't there, but I can imagine that he looked straight into their eyes and said, this Jesus that we say is the Messiah, that we say is the Son of God, you crucified him. And it's almost like he stared straight into their eyes and yelled this. Now, I think this is a risky move because at the very least, they could have had him arrested. They could have had him crucified. What if all the other disciples, what if they just abandoned him like they did Jesus on that day? This was a really risky maneuver, but Peter decided that it was worth it for him to step out of his comfort zone into the unknown for the purpose of making disciples. And so he took this obedient risk. The obedient part was that he knew that his calling was to make disciples. The risk part was, I don't know what's going to happen when I do this, but I'm going for it. Then, just a short time after that, Peter again and one of his other disciple friends named John, they decided that they're going to go and they're going to walk by the temple. They're either walking to the temple, by the temple, we don't know. But there's this beggar who sits right outside of the temple walls, right outside of the gate. And every day somebody has to pick him up, bring him there, lay him there, and he just lays there and begs for money from people as they go in and out of the temple. Could you imagine? Could you imagine coming to church on a Sunday morning here, seeing someone laying outside on the sidewalk begging for money, but yet we wouldn't allow them in? You probably wouldn't go to church here very long, right? I would hope not. But that's exactly what's happening. And the worst thing that could have possibly happened for the religious leaders during this time was that somebody from Jesus' crew would have actually healed this guy. He would get up, walk around, and tell everybody, hey, I was just healed in Jesus' name. Because what happened next was that Peter and John walked by him, and they looked at him, and he was used to asking for money, and so he asked them, do you have any money? And they say, no, we don't have any money. And he's used to hearing that, or he's used to being completely ignored, but they said, what we do have, we're going to give you in the name of Jesus, get up and walk. Now, do you think that this was a risky move for Peter and John to do this? Yes, it was, because, number one, they were right outside the temple. The religious leaders, they didn't want this guy walking around in the name of Jesus. That would have been the worst thing that could possibly happen. And also, I think it was a big risk because, listen, what if like, it didn't work? And they're like the jerks standing outside the temple yelling at this guy to get up, and he just can't walk. Everybody would have seen them as horrible people. This was a huge, risky moment. Now, you guys are going to have to laugh at my bad jokes since there's only a few of you. All right? Even if you don't want to laugh, just belly laugh it out, all right? It'll make the video sound better, okay? Just go for it. And then after this was over, they get arrested for this. Like, they get taken before a council. They get arrested by the temple guard, which I've told you before, kind of just like mall cops. Paul Blart, essentially. There it is. Thanks, guys. And they go before the temple, and they spend the night in jail, and you would think that this would be a moment that they would shy away, they would step back and say, you know what, maybe we should stop this whole Jesus thing, maybe we should stop this whole resurrection business. But no, Peter gets up and he gives another speech, very much the same way. We're going to do what we're going to do. All of this was big, big risk after risk. Now, we could go through the entire book of Acts. These are just the first 4 chapters. We could go through the entire book and show you risk after risk after risk. As a matter of fact, Paul, the guy that came around Acts chapter 8 and 9, his whole life was just one big risk from that moment forward. We could go step by step by step and show you how big of a deal this was. But instead of doing that, I just want to show you that not only did they perform this, but I think Jesus taught them this. And I think they remembered there was this time that Jesus, it was just him and his disciples, and he gave them this parable. And he talked about these three servants. One servant he gave 5 talents to, or bags of gold. Talents are not like playing the piano or juggling here. The talent was essentially like, you didn't have to laugh at that one, but thank you. Talent was essentially like a bag of gold. It was like 20 years worth of wages. And so for one person, one of the servants, he gave 5 talents because he was going on a long trip and he just wanted to see what they would do with them. He gave them 5 talents. And another one he gave 2 talents or 2 bags of gold. And another one he gave 1 bag of gold. And the story goes that the person that had the 5 talents, he ended up making 5 more. So he had 10. And then the person that had 2, he ended up making 2 more. So he had 4. And the person that had 1, you know what he did with it? He went and buried it in the ground so that he wouldn't lose it. And he got it out when the master came back and he showed his master, hey, remember that one thing that you trusted me with? Here it is, I didn't lose it. You know what the master said to him? He said, you are a wicked and lazy servant. You are a wicked and lazy servant because you didn't do anything with this. Now listen, I want you to understand, from the very beginning of Christianity, with the disciples, when they started the whole church thing, with Jesus, when he taught them, risk, stepping out of our comfort zone into the unknown for the purpose of making disciples, was woven into this from the very beginning. And it's not something that's an option for any of us. This is something that every single one of us are expected to do. Matter of fact, the famous author, pastor, Christian leader named John Piper, he wrote a book about this whole subject. You should go and check it out. But I just want to give you one quote that is challenging. This is what he said. He said, the Christian life is a call to risk. You either live with risk or waste your life. I was hoping you guys would all be like, oh, wow. A few of you guys, the kids on the front row are way ahead of the adults here. The Christian life is a call to risk. You either live with risk or you waste your life. But if I'm being honest, I would say that for a lot of us, for a lot of Jesus followers, this is not a part of our daily life. This is not a part of our weekly life. This is not a part of our monthly life. This is not a part of our yearly life. We like guarantees. We like to know how things are going to turn out. We don't like taking risks. We don't like to be like Peter and John and say something or do something and risk somebody doing something negative or saying something. We don't like that. But this is one of those areas that was woven into the very fabric of Christianity from the very beginning. And is something that needs to be a part of every single one of our lives. Obedient risk. I know that God has called me to make disciples. And therefore, I'm willing to turn around and risk maybe everything in order to make that happen. I want to tell you a story from the Old Testament that I think kind of just nails this principle of taking risks. And we're going to uncover 3 things from this story that I think can help you get started with this obedience to this obedient risk. Everybody ready? The story is found in 2 Samuel chapter 23. Let me go ahead and read it to you, and then I'll try to tell you what exactly went down here. It goes like this. During harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief warriors came down to David at the cave of Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water and said, oh, that someone would give me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem. So the 3 mighty warriors, how many? 3 mighty warriors broke through the Philistine lines, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and carried it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out before the Lord. Far be it from me, Lord, to do this, he said. Is it not the blood of men who went at the risk of their lives? And David would not drink it. Such were the exploits of the 3 mighty warriors. Now, before we get into that, let me tell you a story. When I was a kid, 7, 8, 9 years old, I used to play sports. I would try to play baseball. I would try to play basketball. I would try to play football on, the city rec leagues. Chickamauga Georgia city directly, you'd think that I would be all right there. Here's the thing. When I played baseball, I was the third string catcher one year. Guess how many catchers were on the team? Three. That's right. Matter of fact, one game, just so they could get me into the game, the other team allowed me to be the second catcher during a game. Meaning I stood behind the first catcher. And if he missed it, I was right there to back him up. That's how bad I was at being a catcher. I played basketball one year, and I was the third string point guard on the team. Guess how many point guards we had? Three. You guys are all over this. 2. Yeah, great. They didn't even let me be the backup. I played football. I was the 5th string wide receiver. Guess how many wide receivers we had? 5. It seemed like my role, my place, was to let you know how many players we had on the team at that position. Right? If you knew what string I was, you knew how many players we had at that position. And so, listen, here's the thing. It was easy to be able to separate me from the rest of the team, right? You kind of knew who I was. See, what's happening in this story is that David has come to the end of his life. Matter of fact, the title of this chapter is The Last Words of David. And he's remembering. He's thinking back about his life. He's thinking about all the things that he did. And man, David lived a full life. He's probably thinking about the time that he was a shepherd as a kid, just out watching the sheep, and somebody called him to the house, and he was anointed to be the king of Israel. That's a pretty good memory, right? He was probably thinking about the time that nobody else would face down a Philistine giant named Goliath, and he would. That's a really good memory to have, right? Probably tried to forget the whole Bathsheba thing, but so what he's doing is he's sitting here and he's thinking about all these moments, and he starts recalling. He's 30. There were actually 37 total, but there were 30 at this time. 30 mighty warriors. They became known as David's mighty men. They were the ones that were consistent. They fought alongside him. They were the best of the best. You see, David had an army that consisted of thousands and thousands of men. But he looked at these 30 as the bravest, as the ones that were set apart. They were the anti-me growing up. They were there. And 3, how in the world, when you have 30 out of thousands and thousands, do you separate the 3 that are the mightiest out of those 30? That's exactly what David kind of did in this moment. There were 3 of them. David was in his stronghold, which meant they were facing down the Philistine army, once again, the same Philistine army that Goliath came from. So just imagine, like an army full of giants. They've invaded Israel. They've taken some of Israel. And David is in his stronghold because he's afraid of what might happen next. And 3 out of those 30 come down to visit him while he's sitting in that stronghold. And they start talking to him, and David starts longing for something. He starts having this deep desire for something. He says, I want water. I want water. They said, well, there's a bucket of water right over here. He says, no. I want water from the well of Bethlehem, which is near where I grew up. I want water from this particular well. You know what we learn about David in this moment? David was the first ever water snob. You know how people today, they're kind of like, I can only drink certain types of water. Don't bring me Dasani. Are you trying to poison me? I would never, ever drink tap water. Gross. I need the best water. I need Voss water. I need Evian water. I need Fiji water, which is, made with the tears of unicorns, right? Here's the thing. I went and bought this yesterday just for this purpose. And I knew I wasn't going to have much of a voice today, so I knew I would need a lot of water. I went and bought this yesterday for $3. Just so that all 12 of you can see it. I was doing some research this week. The reason I bought Fiji is because according to the Water Awards, it's a sad indictment on our culture that in 2018, there was a group of people that got paid to determine what the best water was in the world. Fiji won the best natural artesian water of 2018, which is now why I have to pay $3 for it. But honestly, it just tastes like water to me. David is a water snob. He has to have only the best water. Bring me the Fiji water. I can't live with Aquafina. That's for the poor. And they're probably thinking, You know what? We would like some water from there too. We'd also like some bacon cheese fries and a meat lover's pizza. But listen, David, you're just going to have to let it go because that's behind enemy lines. But then they started thinking about it. That's our king. That's our leader. That's the one who has risked everything for us. You know what we're going to do? We're going to break through the enemy lines. And we're going to go get him some water from the well in Bethlehem. And so they set out. And can you just imagine this moment? They get their swords. They're ready. They fight through the lines. And can you imagine being one of the Philistines in this moment? They sent just 3 soldiers into our entire army. What are we going to do? They're thinking, okay, probably what they're going to do is they're sending in just a small group so they can go undetected. They're probably going for our king. And so they send 100 soldiers. Everybody surround the king. And they're all just sitting there waiting, surrounding the king. And guess who never shows up? The 3 warriors. We were wrong. They weren't going for the king. They're going for our treasury. They're going to steal all of our gold. They're going to steal all of our silver. Everybody go protect the treasury. And the 100 soldiers are standing outside. Hour goes by. Wait a second. They're not coming here either. They're going to get our food supply. Everybody go protect the pigs, the cows, the sheep, whatever we're eating. Go protect it. Nobody ever shows up. And then finally somebody says, listen, guys, all they did was go to the well. What, did they poison it? No, they just got a bucket of water. What'd they do with it? Well, they just got it, then they carried it out. I think the reason the Philistines lost this war may be because they were just confused. No idea what's going on. So what happened was, David said, I want water. And they fought their way through the crowd, through all these soldiers. They got a bucket of water. Then they fought their way out, and they brought this water to David. Pours it out on the ground. We won't deal with that part. But I just want to talk to you about 3 soldiers that separated themselves to become the 3 mightiest soldiers. And I want to tell you 3 things that they did real quick, that if you will put into practice in your life when it comes to taking obedient risk, could change everything. You guys ready for them? Number 1. They showed up. They just showed up. It wasn't like they did anything special to begin with. They just went down to the stronghold while everybody else was in their tents sleeping. They just showed up. They made themselves available for something big to happen. They didn't wait. They just said, you know what? We're going to show up. And here's what I think is true about you, about me, about all of us. Where we are placed, God has put us in our lives where we have the opportunity every day, every week, every month to take an obedient risk, to make disciples in your neighborhood, in your family, with your group of friends, at your job. He has given you, planted you right where you are, and you have an opportunity to take obedient risk right where you are. And he is just waiting on you to show up and make yourself available. He's just waiting on you to say, God, I know what you've called me to, and here I am. I'm ready. I'm available. I'm ready to take the risk. And he's just waiting on you to show up. Number 2, they didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for permission. And this is one of the things that drives me crazy about Christian culture, about us. We have so many opportunities to take risks. We could go on mission trips, short-term, long-term. We could be a part of so many different things, so many different ministries, serving with kids, serving with youth, so many different things that you can be a part of, even right here. And we're like, you know what, I'm just waiting to make sure that God's called me to this. You know what? The reality is that God has called us to make disciples. And if you are being obedient in risk, you don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait for permission to serve at Awaken Kids, to be able to show them who Jesus is and make disciples of our 8, 9, 10-year-olds. You don't have to wait. And you may say, I don't like kids. That's okay. You don't have to like kids. We need those kind of people too. You can take obedient risk right where you are. You don't have to wait for permission. And number 3, they did something unexpected. They didn't just keep the same old. They didn't just do the same thing over and over again. They stepped out of their comfort zone, and they did something completely unexpected that nobody saw coming. And so here's the deal. I believe that for you and for me, we are called to take obedient risk. We are called to step out of our comfort zone into the unknown, and we are called to make disciples. And so I want to ask you, what ways in your life right now could you begin practicing obedient risk? What ways could you say, you know what, I know I'm called to make disciples. I could serve in this ministry. I could do this thing. What ways can you begin taking obedient risk in your life? And when you think about what that thing is, and maybe it's already come to your mind, I want to challenge you to not just sit on it, to not wait a year or two, or even wait for permission. It's a lot easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? No. I don't want you to wait on it. I want you to go for it. And here's the thing. Here's what I know to be true. It's going to be spectacular. It's either going to be a spectacular miracle or it's going to be a spectacular failure. Either way, it works, because even if you fail, guess what? You get to get up and try it again, but you didn't sit back and do nothing, because according to John Piper, and I believe according to Jesus and the disciples, if you don't live a life with risk, you waste your life. And I don't want you to be a kind of person that just goes to church and never experiences what it means to risk obediently. Stand with me. Let's pray together. Father, thank you once again for the opportunity to be here today. I pray, God, for safety as we travel today. God, I pray that as we leave here and go to our homes or wherever we're headed, that you would help us to use wisdom as we drive, that you would help other people around us to use wisdom as they drive. And God, I pray that in the coming days and weeks that we would take this message seriously. Obedient risk. God, that it wouldn't be something that we expect from other people, that it wouldn't be something that we just expect from a pastor, but we would realize that it's woven into the DNA of every Jesus follower in the world. Stepping out of the comfort zone into the unknown to make disciples. Make that true of us. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right, you're getting out 6 minutes early. Woo! Don't tell anybody else. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you back next week, 9 or 10:30.